You might think jihad will light your fire, and it will, if you want a funeral pyre. It's the fire of evil, the fire of hell. If you doubt me, ask Aaron Bushnell. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to This Week in Jihad. And this is our regular program regarding jihad activity. And of course, the big news this week is that a gentleman named Aaron Bushnell set himself on fire outside the Israeli embassy. And this has been taken by many people, particularly the supporters of Hamas and its jihad against Israel, as an indication that therefore they must be right. We have with us, of course, the great, the one, the only, the David the Wood. What do you think about that, David?
Well, Robert, I have to say I'm a diagnosed psychopath, and your little intro poem was cold even for me.
I just haven't been diagnosed, but that doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting that people. I mean, I noticed it from the Dawa guys a long time ago. Like they'll cling to absolutely anything when they're dealing with the avalanche of apostasy. They will latch on to anything, and that's why they were like latching on to Andrew Tate, and we're like, seriously, the pornographer and sex trafficker and rapist? That's the new hero that you've chosen? And then it was Sneeko, and this guy has got like maybe an 80 IQ, and apparently loves getting the crap beat out of him. He keeps like fighting actual fighters and just getting his face beat in. And it's like, and he becomes the new hero. And it's like, why are you guys clinging to absolutely anyone? And then some guy sets himself on fire, and he's their new poster boy for all things Dawa. And it's just, I don't know, it's this weird set of, it's like someone, it reminds me of someone who's like drowning and they feel something coming by and they just latch onto it because, I don't know, instinct. But yeah, that's what it's like. And mental illness is a real thing.
David, if you kill yourself for a cause, does that mean your cause is right and just?
No. And what's interesting is they would never in a million years, if someone said, I'm protesting jihad and the killing of apostates and the beating of women, I'm going to set myself on fire. They would take that as absolutely no evidence of anything whatsoever. But if it's something that supports some cause they're defending, doesn't matter. And and we can put this to the test. We could have someone. I posted on Twitter. I was like, "Hey, since I'm starting to figure out how you guys communicate, if I chainsaw my testicles off while screaming, 'Bring them home,' will you guys suddenly be in favor of taking home the hostages?" No, they would not. They do not care. These guys got problems, man. They got some serious problems. When a guy who sets himself on fire is second only to Muhammad in your religion now.
And not only that, but Aaron Bushnell, unfortunately, he set himself on fire and killed himself for what is a falsehood, in that he said he could no longer be complicit in genocide as a member of the U.S. military, but Israel is not involved in a genocide. You were just in Israel, David, and so what do you have to say to his claim that Israel is committing genocide?
Yeah, it's just, once again, if Israel is committing genocide, is the absolute worst genocide in history. I mean, they're going after Hamas jihadis who are hiding among civilians, and even with the Hamas jihadis hiding among civilians, the civilian to jihadi death ratio is about 2-to-1, or even a little under 2-to-1, and that is. I saw a video by a military historian said that is shockingly accurate. I mean, that is like shockingly careful fighting right there. 2-to-1 is about the ratio of civilian to soldier casualties in World War II. And that's where you had armies marching out against each other on battlefields. Nevertheless, because of things like bombing cities and so on, you ended up with lots of civilian casualties. And that's just a normal part of war. And if you had, I mean, it's kind of a nightmare situation for a soldier when you're fighting people, you're fighting jihadis who are deliberately trying to maximize civilian casualties. That's a nightmare situation. You're trying to kill the jihadis, they're trying to maximize the civilian casualties so they can get more support on Twitter and so on. So yeah, worse. If you just look, you can look at the statistics on the global number of Jews. It plummets World War II. Why? Because it was an actual genocide. If you look at the Armenians during the Armenian genocide, the number of Armenians plummets. Why? Because it's an actual genocide. If you look at the entire time this genocide of the Palestinians has been going on, their numbers have been skyrocketing. So if you want to call it a genocide, then again, it's just the absolute worst genocide ever. But notice what this does. You just keep saying it. It's genocide. It's genocide. It's genocide. Wait a minute. It doesn't fit any definition of genocide that I'm aware of if you actually pay attention to what's going on. But if you keep doing this, then you send people into a craze. And I have to do something to stop this genocide that doesn't fit any actual definition of genocide. I have to do something about this. And because I can't keep supporting it as a member of the military. So what am I going to do? I don't know. Don't show up for work? Protest? Just say, hey, I'm not working. I'm not doing this anymore. You keep in mind, Robert, this guy would have been a huge sensation if he just said, hey, I'm in the military. I'm not showing up for work and I'm protesting and I don't care what these guys do to me. I don't care if they court-martial me, whatever. I am not supporting this genocidal regime. He'd have been a hero. Why has he got to set on himself up? Mental illness. It's a real thing.
So, David, another question about this guy. He, as you have noted, has become a hero among the Dawa brigades. He is being celebrated by Muslims everywhere, but he was not a Muslim. So what is Allah going to do when he ends up in the Muslim judgment hall and Allah is deciding whether he's going to get paradise and 72 virgins or go to spend his eternity in hell? We already know the answer, do we not?
Yeah, this guy's under multiple sentences to hell in Islam. So one, he's an unbeliever. But two, Muhammad said that anyone who commits suicide by some means will be punished with that eternally in hell. So if you were to slash your wrists, then in hell you would be eternally slashing your wrists would be slashed for all eternity in hell. So I mean, it kind of lines up. This guy burned himself, and so that's a pretty common one for hell in Islam. But yeah, so you have Muhammad. Not even though Muhammad tried repeatedly to commit suicide because he was mentally ill. He eventually forbade suicide and said that anyone who commits suicide is going to hell. There was a man who committed suicide. Muhammad said, I will not say a prayer for him because he committed suicide. And so if anyone's wondering why you have suicide bombers, you also have promises from Muhammad that if you die while waging jihad, that's a one-way ticket to paradise. So they believe that cancels out any warnings against suicide. But just standing there and setting yourself on fire, nope, doesn't count. And so this guy is under multiple sentences to hell, according to Islam. And they love him because they'll cling to anything right now.
Yep, it's true because the Quran says that paradise is guaranteed to those who kill and are killed for Allah. This is chapter 9, verse 111, of course. And so Aaron Bushnell did not kill anyone for Allah. He only was killed. And so it doesn't count as one of the suicides that gets you into paradise. And so there's one other question we got to ask about this guy. He was wearing his military uniform when he did this. What would have happened if he had decided instead to go to Gaza and start walking around in his American military uniform? Would he have been received as a hero in that case?
No, they'd have killed him. They'd have killed him, or at the very least, if he was lucky, taken him hostage and kept him locked up for a while.
There you go. And so we have this very strange instance this week of somebody being celebrated as a hero among many Muslims who was not a Muslim. is, according to Islamic theology, in hellfire right now and would have been killed if he had ventured into Gaza or probably any Sharia observant territory wearing the uniform that he was wearing when he killed himself. Very strange situation.
Yeah, and the real problem here is you don't want to make something like this a cool thing to do. You recall, Robert, when back in the day they were trying to fly planes into buildings and so on, and then so that became a thing to do, and it became more and more difficult as to do things like bombings and so, because you ended up with more government agencies trying to find people who were doing that. So eventually, some guy just came up with the idea. I'll just crash this big truck into a crowd, and then all of a sudden you get all these copycat incidents of vehicular jihad. And what was the movie? I think it was a movie Heathers. I think it was in the 1990s when I was still a teenager. But it was about they killed like the coolest girl in school, but they staged it like a suicide. Everyone wants to commit suicide because it's what the coolest girl in school did, and it becomes a cool thing to do. And that's what you got to be concerned about. If you're glorifying a guy who sets himself on fire, and we are in a culture that is obsessed with getting attention, and you just send out the message, hey, if you want to be lionized by the entire world right now, just set yourself on fire and say, oh, it's doing it for Palestine. And so anyway, I'm hoping no one becomes a copycat, because notice that's a pretty rough copycat syndrome to follow on
Yes.
that one. Set yourself on fire. Aren't too many worse ways to die than that one. So hopefully that doesn't catch on, but we're gonna see. And if it does catch on, we know who to blame.
Well, people are imitative creatures, and so I wouldn't be surprised if we see more than one of these. But it is a very high bar. It's not the kind of thing that most people are going to want to do. Okay, shall we go on to the jihad here, David? We got plenty of jihad this week. Let me find this guy. I know I have a picture of him. Trying to get pictures of as many people as possible so that we can have a full, comprehensive experience here. This is Harafa Hussein Abdi, and he lives in Minneapolis. And he turns out to have wanted to travel to Iraq to receive training from ISIS. And he was charged with all that. Actually, Somalia, excuse me. He did actually join up with an ISIS group in Somalia. And he was planning to come to New York and to commit a jihad massacre there. And he wrote some rap lyrics about this. Now, I don't know how the beat goes on this, but he was rapping about...
It goes like this. It goes like this. It goes like
hollow
that.
tips, put a hole. Okay, you stopped.
Okay, you want me to keep it going? Let's keep it going. Ready? Here
All
we
right,
go.
let's see if we can do it. Okay, go ahead.
I'll give you a simple one. Ready?
Hollow tips, put a hole in your Catholic vest. Chop a head off, let it rest on his Catholic chest.
Not bad. Not bad.
He had the rhymes going there. Fly
Yep.
through America on our way to shoot New York up. They're going to shut this thing. I don't know what he's talking about there. We ain't going. We gonna come blow New York up. Fighting back the kuffar who's at war with Muslims. If that is not Islam, then I don't know what's Islam. Well, he's got a point there.
He's got a point. He's got a point. We both saw it. It's like he's kind of right on the money with Islam.
There you go. So he got arrested. He is not coming, but there will be others, unfortunately. All right, we got in Canada. This is a sad story. This is Joshua Burns, and he was killed in Canada this past week. He worked at McDonald's, and he had a coworker. What's his name? Suleiman El Betta. He was El Betta employee of McDonald's. And Suleiman El Betta got into a fight with his McDonald's coworker, Joshua Burns, and he struck his neck with a machete. He gave him very serious. Let me see. He severed his carotid arteries and jugular veins. He really struck his neck very severely, killing him. Then he called up somebody who was going to come into work and said, "Hi, Rochelle, there was a murder at the restaurant. Don't walk in by yourself." And then he said of Joshua Burns, "He was insulting me, and he was thinking he is better than me because he is white." And so Suleiman El Betta struck his neck. Where do you think he got the idea to strike the neck, David?
I'm going to go with Quran 47:4 for 200, Alex.
I think you've got the 200 there, David, and you're
Mm-hmm.
going to move on to Double Jeopardy, because that is indeed where this comes from. And so you got to think, when you see, okay, well, got a Muslim migrant from Morocco, and he strikes the neck of the guy he's having a fight with. There's clearly some influence here from the culture that says that there's a divine command to strike the necks of non-Muslims, and he strikes a non-Muslim. And yet what's certain about this, absolutely 100% assured, is that Canadian authorities will not go there. They will not follow up on that possibility, not try to figure out if he was a jihadi. The whole thing will be forgotten in a few days.
These guys chopping at people's necks, nothing surprising about that. What's interesting is how thoughtful he was afterwards in trying to warn someone, hey, it's kind of a mess here. So it's like, you know,
I told
Suleiman,
you he was El Betta.
Suleiman the thoughtful jihadi.
El Betta jihadi.
That
He
means
was
that means the beta. He
the
was
beta.
jealous of this guy.
That's it. Well, anyway, Suleiman, we hope we won't be hearing from him again, but one never knows. A lot of stories out of France, of course, because in France they are completely out to lunch in regard to jihad. And so
Pretty stupid.
last Sunday there was an arrest of an 11-year-old boy, because the 11-year-old boy was in school and he was glorifying terrorism and threatened to murder his geography teacher. I don't know why. Maybe the geography teacher said something that called the place Israel instead of Palestine or something like that. But anyway, 11 years old, because they teach them from the beginning. Also in France, we had a Sudanese.
Well, hang on.
Yeah.
That with the kids, that's becoming a serious issue. We've seen it before with the teachers,
Mhm.
because as the moment you say anything that some little Muslim kid doesn't like, he starts saying you're Islamophobic and so on. And there are people who will actually kill you. We've seen it.
That's it. And so we saw that with what's his name?
Samuel Paty.
Paty.
Was it Paty?
Paty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, getting old, David. Getting old.
Me too.
Forgetting
Me too.
stuff.
No, I know the feeling.
Samuel Paty was a teacher. He was murdered, beheaded on the street because he reportedly, there's disputes as to whether he actually even did it or whether the Muslim kids in his class said that he showed them pictures of Muhammad, cartoons of Muhammad, but that was enough. Meanwhile, the Muslims in France are getting very confident, and they are getting very assertive. This is a
Wait, hey, hang on, Robert. I mean, hang
yes,
on.
doctor.
I mean, if only someone had been warning them like 15, 20 years ago that as the percentage of Muslims in a population increases, they're going to become increasingly more aggressive. If only someone had warned these people 15 to 20 years ago, maybe they could have taken precautions. But sadly, there was just no one warning them that exactly what is happening now would happen. I don't know, it's tragic.
Yeah,
Tragic.
nobody was saying anything about that.
Nary a person.
Only Islamophobes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this is how they are getting more assertive as their population grows. This is a stone monument. Obviously, it's in the shape of a cross. It's called a Calvary, and you will find them all over the French countryside, on roadsides, particularly in rural areas. the idea was when they were established, when they were built there several hundred years ago, it was a Christian population, and so they set up stone crosses in the along the roads, and people would stop and pray. And so one of these recently in a rural area in France, you see that it was spray painted with Islam and the crescent. And that created a bit of a stir in the area, especially when several others were also spray painted in the same way. And a bus terminal, this is a picture of the bus terminal, the bus shelter rather, just a place to stay out of the rain when you're waiting for the bus. And it says, "Today, land of war, tomorrow, land of Allah." And what does that refer to, David, for those who may not be aware? Can you explain what's this land of war and land of Allah business?
Oh yeah, the Islam breaks the entire world into two sections, and that's the land of Islam and the land of war.
So they're saying that Islam is going to take over France. That France is part of the land of war. That is the part of the world that Muslims have to wage war against, and it's going to become the land of Allah. That is, it will be incorporated into the House of Islam. So the French are dealing with Muslims who are openly boasting about how they're going to take over soon.
Hmm. But I'm sure it's going to get better, Robert.
Yes, because eventually they'll settle in and they'll become multiculturalists. It's
Yeah,
inevitable.
it's a yeah, and so you've got these guys, they're hell bent on taking over the world, and then you've got a Western civilization that is hell bent on showing how tolerant they are of anything these guys do, with the hope that if we just keep showering these guys with tolerance and money and everything else, then eventually their hearts will melt and they won't want to completely subjugate us.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I got a story like that. That four of those crosses were spray painted with Islam and the crescent in a small rural area in France, and then the bus shelter in the same area that got spray painted with no, that's not it. The today it's the House of War, tomorrow the House of Allah, and then the local priest said, "Let's not get excited about this. There's no need to add fuel to the fire." And you know, David, when I read this, I thought of you because I thought that here we have the way cultures die. That you have one group that is aggressive and emboldened and unafraid, and the other group that's trying to accommodate and appease and tamp things down so that nobody gets excited. And if you had been, I would venture to say, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, if you had been in this area in France when this happened, you might have responded by, say, ripping out a page of the Quran and eating it,
Hmm.
or something of that kind. And what
Yep.
would have been the point? Why would people would say, "What are you doing that for? What is that? That's pointless." And how would you explain it to them? What you were doing there?
Yeah, you're trying to condition them. You're trying to condition them. Hey, this is going to lead to negative repercussions upon your religion. You're attacking other people's religion, and you're in a tolerant place where people generally don't attack other people's religions. But if that's the only thing you understand, then we'll go ahead and make an example. In fact, I don't need to be there, Robert. D Wood doesn't need to be. D Wood, I don't need to be there at all. What are these guys talking about? How many crosses did you say it was?
4.
One and two. This isn't really, this is just one Quran and stuff like this. So,
Sure.
what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to Small token, small token of support for the people of France. But notice, I mean, we're serious here. It's event. People are eventually going to get fed up with this stuff, and they're eventually going to start. I mean, not everyone, maybe not the French, but you can see it. You could see people becoming increasingly concerned, and this is going to become completely normal. And what's going to happen with the Muslims? They're going to, what? Why is everyone doing this? What? We don't understand. You're we had a society that wasn't like this, where we think this sort of thing is stupid, and you are making people like this, and then you cry after you make people like this. What? Oh my goodness, I don't even know what to say to these guys, man.
What's great is that your Quran is getting so thin that pretty
Yeah, don't
soon.
don't worry, I got plenty of them, Robert. I got plenty of them. I
Oh,
got really
sure.
big. Yeah, this thing's
Oh,
getting
nice.
pretty thin.
That pretty soon you're only going to have only the peaceful passages left. You know, you
Yeah,
should
and
rip
then
out everything except there's no compulsion in religion, and anybody who kills one person is as if he killed the whole world, and eat the rest.
hey, but guys, don't blame me. It wasn't me. It was the goat. The goat did it. The goat munched that. That wasn't me. I didn't mess up the Quran. It was him.
I just said it. Okay, let's talk about this guy since we're talking about France. Where is this clown? You probably heard about him. I don't know. This is Majub Majubi. And Majub Majubi is an imam. He's from Tunisia.
That
And
dude needs to meet. That dude needs to meet Shake Your Booty.
Majub Majubi meets Shake Your Booty. Maybe that's next
Imam
week's poem. Yes.
Imam Majubi meets Shake Your Booty. That would be classic.
I love it. Anyway, Majub Majubi is 52, and he's been living in France for 40 years, he says. So he moved to France when he was 12, and he was suddenly expelled from France because he was preaching that the tricolor, the French flag, was from Satan and had nothing to do with Allah. And the French got all upset about this and actually deported him quickly. And he is enraged. He is in Tunisia and he's saying he has a right to be in France. He hates France, of course. He thinks that the French flag is satanic, but he wants to go back. And of course, he wants to go back because he's got more dawah to do. And so Majub Majubi is working on it now to get back into France. But the thing that I thought was strange about it was the French keep on pretending that guys like Majub Majubi are unusual. That the vast majority of the imams in France are perfectly wonderful secularist, uh, moderate Muslims who have no problem with the French state. And they're going to be so embarrassed when they discover that the vast majority of imams have exactly the same view of France as does Majub Majubi.
Yeah, I remember this huge conference of Muslims one year. You might remember the clip. It's probably like 10 years old, and he was talking about how um, Western nations keep pretending like this certain things aren't mainstream Islamic belief. And he says, how many people have a problem with killing apostates in here? Not one hand went up in the whole entire.
Yep. I remember that. And the thing is that authorities in every Western country. Oh, you're stuck. Are you? Can you hear me? Are you there?
I hear you.
Oh, good. There you are. You're back. Okay. If you were in the middle of your point, go ahead. But I thought you were done because you got frozen.
I don't remember what else.
All right. So Majub Majubi is, as we were saying, he's pretty much representative of mainstream Islam. But authorities in the West constantly assume or pretend that these people have nothing to do with the actual Islam that is benign, nothing to worry about. And so they crack down from time to time for cosmetic or political reasons on people like Majub Majubi until the media goes to somewhere else and they either don't want to admit or they don't realize that all the imams are like this. You're not going to find guys that aren't like this.
Mm-hmm.
So they're picking on this
Yep.
poor guy, Majub, and really there's so many others that aren't any better who are still there.
Yeah, and just I don't know, like they're trying to make it look like they're doing something
Yep.
to convince the population, oh, we're cracking down, guys. Getting rid of one of these guys is not going to fix your problem here.
Yeah, the French government right now, they're worried about Marine Le Pen, who has been against mass migration into France for years, and they're afraid that they're going to lose the next presidential election. So now they're just trying to take her issue away from her by supposedly cracking down on these imams, but or at least this one. It's just all for show.
Yeah, I did that at the beginning of the year. I said, "Hey, cool! It's an election year when politicians pretend that they're suddenly dealing with all the things that they've been completely ignoring for the past several years, so they can make it look like they're on the ball for the election."
Yeah, actually, we have that in the United States as well because for years,
Mm-hmm.
for 3 years now, the Biden administration has been insisting that white supremacists were the biggest terror threat that the nation faced. And only recently, Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, has said, "Oh, they're still jihadis. We got to worry about the jihadis. They could strike any minute. They could strike anywhere." And he's been ignoring them for 3 years. But now it's an election year.
Mm-hmm. Well, don't worry. As soon as the election is over, people can go back to ignoring everything.
Indeed. Oh, I'm sure of it. And one of the things they'll ignore, we got it right here. This is out of Germany, where they're doing the same thing. This is a church. You can see that it's church, kind of looks like a church. And you can see on the wall somebody painted Allahu Akbar in Arabic. And that doesn't seem very multicultural to me, David. I don't know. What am I missing?
Yeah, I'm starting to think. I'm starting to think they're not really interested in all cultures coexisting.
Yeah, and yet now the West has done this to themselves and brought millions of Muslim migrants into Western countries, and they have been pretending all this time that there wasn't going to be a problem, that they would fit right in with the secular framework of the countries, despite so much evidence to the contrary, and there's going to be plenty more coming up soon. All right.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about you, Robert, but I'm thinking about wondering what's going to happen for Ramadan this year.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting thing because Joe Biden and the United States government is trying to get Israel to agree to pause the war in Gaza during Ramadan. In the first place, I think that's
Mm.
incredible because the October 7th attack was on a
Yeah,
Jewish holiday. And there's
yeah.
the
Don't they
Yom
always
Kippur
attack? Don't
War.
they always
Yeah,
attack on? Yeah, they
yeah.
always attack on Jewish holidays.
But we all have to
And
respect, of
matter of fact,
course. Yeah.
yeah, we were talking to people over there, and this is one of the reasons they were massive. They still haven't caught on. They thought they'd move past. Uh, who like we're in one place where there's the actual shelter for attacks and so on. And the woman who was there was like, I didn't even show up. It was a holiday. Why am I going to go in? Nothing's going to happen. And she
Wow.
says, by the time she finds out that there's an attack and she goes in, everyone who tried running there was all dead. And she's like, I'd have been killed too if I just shown up.
Wow. And meanwhile,
So
Israeli
wild stuff.
officials are warning that Hamas is going to try for a an attack on the proportions of October 7th during Ramadan this year. And so what we could end up with could be Hamas attacking during Ramadan while the West is restraining Israel from responding. Could very well happen. It's an interesting thing because I recently had some kind of unpleasant exchanges with some former friends, Christians, who turned out to be complete anti Semites and Jew haters, full of crazy conspiracy theories about how the Jews control the world. And I think it's funny how the Jews control the world. They do it so poorly that the whole apparatus of the West, the United Nations, the United States government, is all trying to get them to stop fighting. And the media constantly portrays, reports Hamas casualty figures as if they're accurate, and puts Israel in a bad light. And yet the Jews control the media and all that. It's just insane. It's incredible what people will believe.
Oh, it's very insane. In fact, that was one of our me and AP. We spent whatever 9 days there or something like that, and but uh, we're actually hanging out with the guys that run like the social media campaigns for them and so on. And what, we were shocked at how, I don't want to say incompetent they are. They're competent at what they're doing as far as reminding people about the hostages and reminding people about the attacks. But as far as the claims that are being slammed against them on social media, that it's this genocidal state where a Christian can't walk down the street without people spitting on them and things like, they have no idea how to they have no idea how to respond to that stuff. So the people who are blasting away with this stuff just keep getting away with it. But yeah, AP was saying this, like, I thought we're like these masterminds over here, and so we're hanging out with them, and they kind of know what they're doing, responding to social media and so on. So yeah, they got some issues there. I want to make a short video, just like a Twitter video on this, on the idea of a ceasefire, because we are in this age of everything social media, and what's this doing to our brains. You can't think like 5 minutes into the future. All you think is like right now, exactly what you want right now. And people don't understand how war works anymore. Back in the day, the Japanese bomb your ships, you go, and your goal is to make them surrender so you can implement policies so that they can never do that again. Guess what? Worked. What are they doing? How much did they attack after them? What did the Germans attack after World War II? You fought till they surrendered and you won, and then you implement policies that keep them from attacking you again. Suddenly, in more recent years, it's you have to be extremely gentle, and what that leads to is wars that never eventually you have to leave, and then everything you accomplish absolutely nothing, like Afghanistan, right? Um, if you wanted to actually conquer the Taliban, you would have to be pretty brutal and pretty relentless. We're not willing to do that anymore, and the result is a decades-long war that you eventually lose because you're not willing to do what it actually takes. Because you would be insulted on social media for being brutal enough to take out the Taliban. But that's exactly what Israel's being told right now. Hey, you guys got to just do a ceasefire, and people aren't thinking like, hey, it's true. If Israel did a ceasefire right now, then yes, in this moment, lives would be saved. Would lives be saved in the long run because of that? No, because think about the message you would be sending to terrorists. Hey, terrorists, you want to come kill a bunch of Israelis? If you want to come and kill a bunch of Israelis, then run and hide, well, we'll give up after a while. And you can live to terrorize another day. And you can inspire future generations of jihadis that, hey, all you got to do is kill a bunch of people, then run and hide for a little while, and Israel will give up. If that's the takeaway, that is not a deterrent to terror. That's an encouragement. You could get away with it. You could do it, and they're not going to hunt you down. Compare that message, which is what the world is demanding. Hey, just do a ceasefire before you catch the terrorists, and they'll live to do it again. Compare that message with a different message, which is, no, we're going to keep hunting you down until we have captured or killed your terrorists. We're relentless in hunting you down. We don't care where you hide, we're get you. If you hide in a school, we're coming to that school and we're going to find you. If you hide underground, we're going underground. We're going to find you. Under no circumstances are you going to stop until we have captured or killed every last one of you who had anything to do with that attack. What message does that send to future generations of jihadis? The message is, if you do it, you're dead. You're not under any circumstances going to do this and live. And as much as they run their mouths about we love death but more than they love life, it's true for some of them, guys who go out and blow themselves up. The vast majority running and hiding in tunnels, you guys don't want to die. Shut up. So if you actually think about the message as a deterrent, you kind of have to be relentless and brutal so that future generations understand we do not want to do this because we have no hope of surviving it.
That's it, man. They really should hire you and AP over there and get you to make their case, because people don't understand these things, and they are. It seems like slow on the uptake in terms of the the PR campaign and the deception
Hmm.
campaign that the jihadis and their allies are using. Meanwhile, we
And by
have,
the way,
yes,
by the way, that was another thing we noticed is how everyone is in a rush to defend Islam. And I understand it from the perspective of the government because you do have lots of Muslims there, and so you
mhm.
don't want to, you don't just upset your Muslim population. But your average person, almost every person you run into, you're sitting there talking about. I mean, we're talking to like families whose brothers and sisters are being held hostage by Hamas, and you talk to them, hey, what? So tell us about your brother, tell us about your sister. They're talking stuff, and they'll just insert. But no, we understand this has nothing to do with Islam. That hatred for Jews and taking captives has nothing to do with Islam. So we don't know where these guys are getting this, and we're like, oh my goodness. You guys are trying your hardest not to make this about religion. They made it about religion, guys. Muhammad made this about religion, and 14 centuries of jihadis have made this about religion, and you're defending their religion. It's like the Western, the same issue we have in the West that the more the attacks are, the more we rush to defend it. But it's like on it's like on Red Bull over there.
Yeah, I've noticed that when I was over there. Nobody wants to face the fact that this all comes out of Islamic theology. Uh,
Don't worry, don't worry though, Israelis. We'll do it for you.
Maybe it's just too terrible to contemplate because then they think, well, then there's no way we can make a deal. It's true. There isn't any way. Not a good deal. Not a lasting deal. Anyway, a lot of these deceptions were just exploded. Deceptions that come out of the same well springs, but on a little different topic. Did you see the interview with Asma Muhammad, the wife of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the late caliph of the Islamic State?
Nope.
Well, there she is. You can see her there. Well, you can't really see her there. You can see a nose and a mouth, and
I see a
that's
ninja.
yes. And Asma Muhammad gave this interview, the whole thing like that, and she explained that he had 10 Yazidi slave girls, the caliph of the Islamic State, and his third wife was a child younger than the daughter of Asma Muhammad, this woman here. And so we had child marriage and we have sex slavery. Where did Abu Bakr get the idea that these things were justified, David?
I'm gonna go with Muhammad for 1,000.
That is correct. Man, you were racking up the dough tonight. I'm going to have to write a hefty check, ladies and gentlemen.
I want that. I want that check in shekels, Robert.
Shekels, of course. Well, as soon as our Zionist paymasters pay me, then I will pass on to you your winnings. But in any case, the widow of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi has thus confirmed what we have pointed out now for 2 decades, that Islam does countenance the sexual enslavement of infidel women captured in battle. These were Yazidis that the jihadis were fighting against to establish a caliphate in Iraq and Syria. And he had a child bride, of course, in imitation of the Big Mo, who raped Aisha when she was 9, according to Islamic tradition, and he was 54. So, anyway, these things are coming out. It turns out, yet again, we were right all along after decades of being told we were hateful Islamophobes for saying such things. And yet, this guy who had a PhD in Islamic studies, by the way, Abu Bakr al Baghdadi, and was the caliph of what positioned itself as being the sole legitimate government to which Muslims owed allegiance, and the one that was the quintessential Islamic government, and he was doing these things that we were told were not Islamic. And yet they were. Okay, Burkina Faso, I know you saw this because actually I got this one from you, David, that there was a murder in Burkina Faso last Sunday when Muslims burst in on a Catholic church. They killed 15 people who were gathering for prayers. And this kind of thing gets no attention. I saw you talk about it, and I went and found a source talking about it, but that was it. It wasn't in the Washington Post or CNN or the New York Times. Why do you think
Yeah,
not? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, the only positive is that there were so many college students protesting the slaughter of Christians. Oh, wait, there wasn't one. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know.
Yes. No Jews were involved in the killings, so
Yep, no
didn't get any
Jews, no
attention.
news.
That's it. What is that guy's name? Ebatullah, right? Yeah, Ebadullah. Let me get it. I got his picture here, although the German language press, for some reason, wants to protect the identity of these people, so they put those big black bars over their eyes.
It's like a
Uh,
reverse burqa.
yes, indeed. Abu Bakr al Baghdadi's wife just wore it voluntarily, but this is Ebadullah. We don't know his last name. And Ebadullah is a Muslim who lives in Vienna, although he is from Afghanistan. And last week he went to a house of prostitution and he murdered 3 prostitutes. Now, this is a story that is getting a lot of attention in Vienna because the more that comes out about it, well, it's the kinds of things that you would expect. It turns out, in the first place, people were saying, oh, he was turned away. They rejected him for some reason, and so he was angry and went back and killed them. And, could be some nut like that. I mean, there are precedents. But then it comes out that Abdullah was a Sharia cop. They have Sharia police in Vienna, and he was one of them, a guardian of public morals. These are people that they have them in New York City. Actually, gets very little attention, but they have cars that are made to look like NYPD cars, and they go around talking to Muslims if they see that they know that somebody is a Muslim or somebody looks like a Muslim walking in a Muslim area, but they're a woman not wearing hijab or a guy buying beer or something like that, then they harass them. And there are morality police, of course, who are official and paid in Iran and in Saudi Arabia, and morality police that are unofficial in several European countries, and Austria is one. And so it came out first that this guy's one of the Sharia policemen, and so people are wondering now, did he kill the prostitutes because, of course, they're prostitutes, and even though there's really no sanction against that kind of behavior in Islam, Anwar al-Laki was known to frequent prostitutes. All he did was make them marry him, in a temporary marriage. Nonetheless, this guy did this. And then it turned out that he went to a mosque first. And then went over to the house of prostitution and killed these 3 women. What do you think was the deal there, David, with him going to the mosque?
Yeah, without more details, you don't know. He could have been going over there to set up a little contract, say, hey, what do I have to do to get these girls to marry me? What do I have to get them to say, or something like that? Or it could
Mm-hmm.
have just been, Allah bless me as I go murder these girls in your name or something. I don't know.
It could have been, yeah, it could have been either one, but I think that about covers it. That you have the possibility of a temporary marriage that he was hoping to conclude, which is essentially prostitution in an Islamic context. Shiite for the most part, but Sunnis have been known to partake of this kind of thing in Egypt and Saudi Arabia and elsewhere. Or he was thinking that he is going to enact the wrath of Allah, as the Quran directs Muslims, chapter 9, verse 14. Fight them and Allah will punish them by your hands. And so it's just the opposite of the gospel passage that's also in the Old Testament. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. I will repay. In Islam, it's the Muslims who are carrying out the vengeance of Allah. And so if these people are doing something that is wrong, then he kills them, and that is service to Allah.
Yeah, and that's 8:17. It wasn't you who killed them, it was Allah.
There you go.
Allah kills them through you.
Exactly. All right, this kind of thing is going to get more and more popular in the West. This is Muhammad Abdu. And Muhammad Abdu is somebody who is an open supporter of Hamas, Hezbollah, and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. And he is also now, he's just been hired, so congratulations to Mohammed Abdu. He is now a professor at Columbia University.
Hmm.
And so it's funny because, what do you think, David, if you were to apply to teach at Columbia University and say you wanted to be a professor of Islamic studies, you're abundantly qualified. Do you think you'd get hired?
Oh no, it wouldn't matter. No, wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter. I could have 10 PhDs in Islamic studies. They'd say, "Oh, you criticize it, and therefore you're an Islamophobe. You can't touch it." But yeah, if you're, hey, I love Hamas. Hamas is great. Hamas is good. Hamas is the greatest thing since goats. No, yeah, you're good. You're good.
That's it. And so Mohammed Abdu is going to be teaching in Columbia. Makes me sorry I'm not still living in New York because I would try to drop by, see if I could do a, what do you call that, survey his class. He'd probably throw
Hmm.
me out though. Anyway, oh, hey, I wanted to talk about this. This guy is already taking a victory lap. Let me get him here. Um, Haytham al Haddad. Haytham is a great name for these jihadis, don't you think?
Yep.
But oh, here we go. Here he is. And he was recently speaking in London. You saw this?
Yeah, I saw that clip.
Yeah, he was speaking in London, and what is this
What he
now?
call
Sorry.
what he call it? Look, what he say? London. He said he's bragging. Says London now looks like a second Afghanistan. He was telling this as like it's a good thing to his followers.
Is that thing on the screen, or is it just on my screen? Do you see a
What's
thing
that?
over your face?
Not now.
Good. Okay. Well, I do, but I'll try to ignore it. Um, I have no technical ability, ladies and gentlemen. You probably know that.
That makes two of us.
I hit the. Nah, you know how to do all this. Anyway, I hit the wrong button. I hope you don't see some big square over David's face. But anyway, this is Haytham al Haddad. And Haytham al Haddad was crowing about the subjugation and Islamization of Britain. And he said, you can go outside and you'd think you're in a second Afghanistan, but you're really in
Hmm.
Londonistan. And I thought that's wild because I remember like 15, 17, 18, I don't know, years ago, there was a book, Londonistan, that was a warning about the
Hmm.
Islamization of Britain. And not only
Hmm.
was it not heeded, but now we have an Islamic scholar in Britain saying, hey, it's Londonistan now. And, it's a good thing that they have people like that in Britain and have barred critics of jihad violence so that now Britain can be appropriately multicultural.
Yeah, I was there, and when I was there with Nabil, I remember 2008 or something like that. We were over, but we were over at Speaker's Corner. And we went down a street, and all the business signs are in Arabic. Every woman was wearing a burqa. And if you didn't know where you were and you looked around on that street, you'd say, and you just woke up and said, "Huh, where am I?" You'd think you're in Saudi Arabia or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But no, London. And apparently, it's that has spread. That has spread all over the place now.
Yeah, I was last in London in 2009, and I was amazed. We sat outside for a while and ate at an outdoor cafe and watched the people go by. And I thought that every third or fourth person is wearing hijab or wearing kaftan and kufi, and that was 15 years ago now. So it's who knows at this point what it's going to be like.
Yeah, and it's interesting because this ties into what we are saying about France and how the that priest reacts to people desecrating crosses and so on. And it's you have Muslims constantly flexing on people, running their mouths. We're taking you over, and people start to get concerned and worried about what's going on and how this is going to affect the future of their country and their children and so on. So, people start getting a little antsy. But then to show that you're not an Islamophobe, what do? You have to bend over backwards to appease Islam even further. Well, we're going to show you. We'll bring in even more. We'll bring in even more Muslims so that everyone knows we are not Islamophobes. And the Muslims interpret this as, look how weak they are. Look, they can't even
Oh
they
yeah.
can't even stand up. It's evidence for them. It's proof. It's proof that God has helped them subjugate the society, because God is turning everyone into complete cowards and so on. And so people think, oh, we're showing them how tolerant we are. This is going to melt their hearts. You're encouraging them that you are here to be conquered.
Yep. That's it. Goodness, lots more jihad going, and I want to get to as much as we can in the next few minutes. In Nigeria, where there is, of course, quite a lot of jihad activity all the time. This is Oluremi Tinubu, and that's fun to say. Oluremi Tinubu is the first lady of Nigeria at this point. Her husband is the president, Bola Tinubu, and Oluremi Tinubu is a Christian. Bola is a Muslim, and of course, there's nothing illegal about that in terms of Islamic law, and so there's no problem there. But a Muslim cleric in Nigeria has now said that Oluremi Tinubu should be killed because she is a Christian.
Hmm.
And he says that according to Quranic law, although he did not cite Quran passages, and I wish he had, because really, I don't know that he has a case.
No, I don't think so.
There's no reason for him to say this. So here we are. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to point out that David Wood and I are in agreement right here that Islam does not call for wholesale killing of Christians. And so
Yeah.
a Muslim cleric in Nigeria, we are saying actually is un-Islamic. And I want to point this out because this is not rehearsed, and I did not know how David was going to react when I brought this up, but it's important to note that we are often charged, at least I am, and I think you are, David, as well, with exaggerating what we say about Islam and claiming that it's worse than it is. And yet, we are actually both scrupulously accurate and say what we have no interest in saying anything except what Islam actually teaches.
Yeah, and I'm sure we make mistakes at times. The mistakes are not intentional. Sometimes I'm joking. Sometimes I'm joking, and I'll exaggerate or something like that. But if you ask me, what's my serious position, I'm not trying to misrepresent Islam. And when I think someone else is misrepresenting, I'm happy to point it out.
We lost a little bit of that, I think, with the sound. But in any case, yes. Now, Oluremi Tinubu, of course, has choices. She is, as a Christian, I'm sure this cleric would agree, is to submit to the hegemony of the Muslims, as the Christians in Nigeria are to do in general. And otherwise, she could convert to Islam and have full equality of rights. But the only ones who were to be killed are those who actually actively resist the Islamization of the country. In any case, sorry, distracted by a spammer. The jihad in Nigeria continues to be waged, and there is a lot of wholesale killing of Christians because they are considered to be infidels at war with Islam at this point. And so in that case, Islamic law allows for their large-scale killing, and then the rest are supposed to accept subjugation. This is Bishop Wilfred Anagbe of the Diocese of Makurdi in Nigeria. And he has decried this past week the organized, systematic, and brutal cleansing of Christians. So he did not go so far as to say that it was genocide, although others have said that about what's going on in Nigeria. but he is speaking about the brutal ethnic cleansing of Christians in Nigeria. And this is, of course, exactly what is happening. Another commentator has said that the single worst place in the world to be a Christian is in West Africa, particularly parts of Nigeria today. Why does this not get any attention, David?
Not the right narrative, Robert. Not the right narrative.
Not the right narrative. That's it.
Muslims killing Christians is not the right narrative. That could mess everything up. Because people might start thinking, well, if Muslims are killing a bunch of Christians, and maybe there's something about Islam that's pretty dangerous towards Christians, and maybe it's not a good idea to do what we've been doing for a while.
That's it. It's a narrative that the establishment media sets up and enforces, that Christians are always oppressors, Muslims are always victims. And if the story doesn't fit that, it does not exist. And on that happy note, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this thrilling episode of This Week in Jihad. David, thank you for your wise and important observations. And God willing, we will be back here next week with more jihad. Unfortunately, there is likely to be more jihad. But in the meantime, as always, pray, hope, and don't worry.